What's going on, everybody? Anthony Cervino here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel with my top buy, sell, and hold players for NFL Week 11. Let's start out with our buys, and we're going to start with Brian Robinson Jr. Now, he's banged up. He's dealing with a hamstring. In fact, he's missed each of the past two games with the aforementioned hamstring injury. There's an early game this week on Thursday Night Football, and the estimated practice report on Monday calls him limited. But Brian Robinson, the reason why we are buying him, because I think people are going to forget how effective he was, because Washington, outside of this week, they keep rolling. They're still running effectively, even with Austin Ekeler. But if we go back to earlier this season, Brian Robinson looked like one of the better backs in the NFL, one of the better values that we found in fantasy football drafts. In fact, Brian Robinson Jr. had double-digit PPR points in every single game he played this year outside of Week 8 against Chicago. He's been effective. He's given us one high ceiling outing with 20.3 PPR points. He's been a touchdown machine, scoring at least one time in all but two games. And this is a backfield in which he concedes some touches to Austin Ekeler and the threat of Jaden Daniels. So why are we buying Brian Robinson? Again, he hasn't played in a few weeks. He is still listed with an injury. This makes him a buy low. And Brian Robinson, I get it. This upcoming game, if he's active, it's Philly, the second most difficult matchup for enemy running backs, but the schedule opens up down the slate. He still gets Dallas, Tennessee, New Orleans, Philly again, and then the fantasy championship, Atlanta, whose run defense is normally stout. It's been descending. It's been heading in the wrong direction. So we're going to get the usage. He is averaging 15.7 touches per game. He is averaging 70.1% of his yards after contact, which is 80th percentile amongst running backs. And he's a deceptively good receiver. He's averaging 12.4 yards after the catch, which is 95th percentile. And again, when it comes to goal line usage, he's one of the better backs in the NFL. He already has 7 carries inside the 5-yard line this season. He's a do-it-all running back on an ascending offense that loves to run the football inside the 5. We are buying Brian Robinson low. My next buy is another running back, Kenneth Walker. And this is another running back who has kind of fallen off after an outstanding start to the year. As we know, Kenneth Walker, he started popping early and often through the first 7 weeks of the season. Kenneth Walker gave us at least 18 PPR points 4 different times, including 3 games over 20 PPR points, and that big one against Detroit, a really tough matchup, in which he gave us 33 PPR points. He's another guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. They're going to give it to him on the goal line and inside the 5 a lot. In fact, he has 7 rushes inside the 5 this season already. Now, in the past 2 games, he has quieted down. He has under 13.7 PPR points in each of the past 2 games, including a season low outing against Buffalo, 8.5 PPR points. The only time he's been in the single digits this season. This game got out of hand. Buffalo dominated the matchup and game scripted Kenneth Walker out. But overall in the year, 18.4 touches per game, a 26.3 broken tackle rate, an 88.2% catch rate. He's also being targeted deceptively on 23.3% of the routes he is running. Although Charbonnet is like to be known as the primary receiver out of the backfield, Kenneth Walker is pretty good at it as well. So why do we think Kenneth Walker has quieted down? DK Metcalf. With DK Metcalf dealing with the knee injury, the enemy defensive coordinator is going to game plan against the Seattle Seahawks differently. And that affects Kenneth Walker, that affects Geno Smith, and really affects the team overall, which is why they've kind of been on the downfall since DK has missed time. Week 10 was a bye. we could possibly expect DK Metcalf to return this week, dealing with the knee. That's at least the expectation, is that he's on the practice field on Wednesday, and that is good news for Kenneth Walker. Another buy low opportunity, because all people, they're really going to remember a lot of the times recency bias. Well, the past 2 games, he's going in the wrong direction. Plus, he's coming off the bye week. I'm not worried about it. This is the best time to buy Kenneth Walker for a fantasy football championship run. He has pretty good matchups down the stretch. In fact, this week, San Francisco, Arizona, the Jets, who are going in the wrong direction. Arizona again, Green Bay, Minnesota's a tough one, and then fantasy championship against the Chicago Bears, another team whose defense is going in the wrong direction. I think the best of Kenneth Walker could be down the stretch. Buy him while his price is probably the lowest we've seen all season long. My final buy, Calvin Ridley. Yes, Calvin Ridley. Remember him? People were thinking about cutting Calvin Ridley off their fantasy team earlier this season. He had 1 pop game in week 2 where he goes off for 24.7 PPR points. But outside of that, from weeks 1 to 7, every other game in the single digits. One of the worst passing offenses in the NFL, whether it was Levis or Mason Rudolph. It couldn't get out of its own way. Something's been different in the past 3 games. Why? Calvin Ridley starting to turn it on. No burden DeAndre Hopkins, and Ridley seems to be ascending. He's given us 12.3 PPR points at a minimum in 3 straight. 2 of those games over 24. In fact, he's given us 3 total games over 24 PPR points this season. He's getting volume. He's had at least 8 targets in every game since week 6. He's had at least 9 targets in 2 out of the past 3 games. He's putting up yards. He is now finding the end zone. And talk about a winning schedule. Now, I get it. Sometimes schedule doesn't matter if you can't figure out the quarterback. But it seems like maybe, just maybe, things could be positive for this throwing attack in Tennessee. The rest of the season schedule, it's all in the green. Vikings, Houston, Washington, Jacksonville twice, including in the fantasy playoffs. Indy, and in the game to get to the fantasy championship in week 16. This is a dream schedule. And guess what? I get Calvin Ridley's been playing well. It's not going to cost you a lot to buy him. Now is the best time to buy Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't overpay, but looking at that schedule, there's a chance he could catch fire. Remember, his former first-round pedigree. Brian Callahan's one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. Can he squeeze the best out of his quarterback room? If he can, Calvin Ridley just might be a league winner. Now, remember, if you like content like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert icon, so you can be notified anytime we go live to answer your questions, which is like every day, or when we drop content just like this. If you have fantasy football questions of any kind, waiver wire, trade, buy, sell, hold, start, sit, ask them in the comments below. We will get back to you as soon as we can. Now, let's get to the players. We are selling Malik Nabors, folks. I'm done with Malik Nabors. And I warned people a few weeks ago, after the Andrew Thomas injury, yes, the tackle, what does he have to do with Malik Nabors? Well, Daniel Jones. That's what has to do with Malik Nabors. Daniel Jones, if he has protection, and we see this in his career, we've seen it earlier this year. He has protection. He's a good quarterback. Not great, not very good. He's good. If he has no protection, there's no middle ground. He goes from being a good quarterback to a player who should not be starting NFL games. In fact, I don't even know if he starts XFL games. That's the variance of Daniel Jones with and without protection. Without Andrew Thomas, it has been bad for Daniel Jones, the New York Giants, and particularly Malik Nabors. Malik Nabors is still getting volume. He is still bringing a high floor. In fact, past 3 games, over 10 PPR points, 2 of which over 14. He's had double-digit targets in 3 straight games, 4 straight games with 8. What's the difference between, again, Malik Nabors earlier this season, weeks 2 to 4, double-digit targets in every game, over 20 PPR points in every game, scoring in every game? One of the biggest differences here, he has not received a red zone target since week 7. In that 3-game stretch from weeks 2 to 4 where he was popping, he had a total of 6 red zone targets. The Giants aren't getting in the red zone, and if they are, Daniel Jones not getting protected enough to facilitate the football to Malik Nabors. I'm selling Malik Nabors while there is still value. Before they pull the plug, which could happen at any time, and go to Drew Lock. I don't know if Drew Lock is an upgrade over Daniel Jones. He could be. I don't exactly trust it. At least Daniel Jones has a rapport and is smart enough to keep feeding this elite rookie wide receiver. But go sell him while you still can. Name value and pass production could get you a really good wide receiver for down the stretch. Hey, maybe even Marvin Harrison Jr. My other sell, I am done with CeeDee Lamb. I'm a Cowboys fan. It hurts me to say this, but we need to move on from CeeDee Lamb. A few weeks ago, I had CeeDee Lamb as a buy. Why? Rest of season schedule is one of the best on paper, like Malik Nabors, like Calvin Ridley. Lamb is just the same. Why don't I like CeeDee Lamb anymore? Well, there's no more Dak Prescott. Not like Lamb and Dak were on the same page very much this season anyway, but there's a significant downgrade from Dak Prescott to Cooper Rush, and now we're probably going to see Trey Lance? Are you kidding me? I want nothing to do with CeeDee Lamb. I don't care if he was getting double-digit targets per game. The quality of targets is downgraded. I think this Cowboys team overall has probably packed it in. They're done for the year. They have no hope. And CeeDee Lamb is an injury away from potentially getting shut down himself as well. It's CeeDee Lamb. You can sell people on the name. You can sell people on the schedule because the schedule is outstanding. The usage is still probably going to be there. This guy has had 10 targets in 4 straight games. However, outside of that game against San Francisco where he went off with Dak, he's had under 16 PPR points in those games, in 2 straight games under 14, and last week against Philly, abysmal 8.4 PPR points, 10 targets. Dallas, I don't even know if they reached 100 yards passing, 5 turnovers, and unfortunately, this might be what we get. I don't know if the Cowboys win another game this year. Sell CeeDee Lamb while you could still get value because of who he is. Let's go to 2 players I'm not moving. If you have Chuba Hubbard, we are holding Chuba Hubbard. I get it. Jonathan Brooks is coming back. And Jonathan Brooks could take touches from Chuba Hubbard. But we also have to remember, there is no rush to put Jonathan Brooks on the field to a significant workload. They also paid Chuba Hubbard long-term, which means they value him. They value him a lot. And Chuba Hubbard has been nothing short of exceptional this season. Chuba Hubbard, if you drafted him, has probably won you your fantasy league or could win you your fantasy league for the production he has given us. Multiple games, over 20 PPR points, multiple games, finding the end zone, putting up yards, seeing volume. How much volume? Right around 17.4 touches per game, 11.7% of team targets. He's even getting it done at the second level. He's averaging 3.1 yards after contact, which is 86th percentile using the outstanding tools here at RotoWire.com. He's a very good running back. The issue, he's on a bad football team, but despite the fact that he's playing on a bad football team and a bad offense, he is still getting fed. He is still getting production for his fantasy managers. And look out. Bryce Young is starting to look competent. And if they could assemble a competent passing attack, there is going to be open running lanes. Maybe the enemy defense does not stack the box because they might have to respect Bryce Young. Perish the thought. We need to keep Chuba Hubbard. He's been too effective. And his fantasy playoff schedule, coming out of the Week 11 bye, you get KC. In week 12, and then week 13, you get Tampa. Week 15, or week 14, you get Philly, right? 2 really tough matchups, but that playoff schedule, you got to see it. Dallas, 28th, Arizona, 24th, fantasy championship, you get Tampa again. Chuba Hubbard, potential league winner. Hold on to him. I don't care about Jonathan Brooks. We are going to ride Chuba Hubbard to the trophy. My last player, we are holding Deebo Samuel, and I do a panic meter video. It's a short that goes out on this YouTube channel, goes out on the RotoWire TikTok. I am panicking about Deebo Samuel, but I'm not ready to sell Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, despite the fact he is not giving us north of 12.6 PPR points since week 6, nor has he found the end zone since week 6, he's also dealt with a bye week and some injuries. He also has to contend with a lot of mouths to feed in the offense. the volume isn't going to be there. But we know Deebo doesn't need a lot of volume. He's an efficient football player. The past 2 games that we've seen Deebo Samuel on the field and playing at least 40 snaps, he's given us at least 12.6 PPR points. He's seen at least 6 targets. He's also given us 5 receptions for 62 yards or 4 for 71. The missing piece for Deebo Samuel is the scoring, and I think eventually Deebo Samuel will start clicking down the stretch. There is no more Brandon Ayuk, and I get that Pearsall and Jennings, they look like they're going to have a large role. Deebo Samuel is a superstar, and with CMC back, the enemy defenses, they're going to have a really hard time game planning against both of these players who are going to be on the field at the same time. They can both catch passes. They can both take handoffs. I think with this pairing back, we're going to see a more efficient runner out of Deebo Samuel, and he wasn't really efficient this year as a runner because I believe the lack of CMC. I think with everybody back down the stretch, Deebo Samuel is going to have to be leaned on. This San Francisco 49ers team, they're not a lock to win a division. They're chasing teams like the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to be chasing teams in the NFC championship race, the home field advantage, the playoff race. Deebo Samuel is going to have to be a big part of this game plan if the San Francisco 49ers are going to do any damage for the rest of the way. We are holding Deebo because I think a late rest of season pop run is coming for this elite, versatile wide receiver.